Hi guys, I miss you all. I'm going to come to you probably every day just to check on you. I'm going to read the first part of Detested Tea for you, and then you can make your connections. You only have to do that part, and anybody in your house can read it back to you if needed. The three ships tied up to Griffin's Wharf in Boston Harbor contained 342 chests that held 92,000 pounds of tea. Massachusetts Governor Thomas Hutchinson was determined to get the cargo unloaded. Boston residents were equally determined to prevent that from happening. It turned into a historic standoff with dramatic results. At issue was whether Great Britain had a right to collect a tax on certain items coming into the colonies. In this case, the taxable item was tea, specifically tea owned by the British East India Company. The British East India Company had been around since the turn of the 17th century, but by the 1770s it was heavily in debt, and the company held large amounts of surplus tea, about 17 million pounds in its warehouses. Parliament decided to help the struggling company. The Tea Act of 1773 gave the British East India Company the right to ship tea directly to the colonies instead of going to Great Britain first. It eliminated any duties to be paid by the company. It gave exclusive control for the sale of tea in the colonies to specific agents who were chosen by the king. The law eliminated competition in the colonies and enforced the Townshend Acts from 1767, which included a tax on the tea. Payment of the tax was expected to be made when the tea was unloaded or within 20 days of a ship's arrival. Parliament believed that when the colonists accepted this tax, they also would have to accept Parliament's right to impose taxes on them. Except the colonists refused to pay the tax. Colonists convinced British East India Company agents and merchants to resign their positions. In New York, Philadelphia, Annapolis, and Charleston, the colonists refused the shipments of tea. They either sent them back to London or they left the unloaded tea to rot on the docks. But in Boston, Hutchinson and his sons, who had been appointed company agents, were not intimidated. When the first of the three ships carrying tea arrived in late November, the citizens of Boston would not accept the cargo. They tried to send the ships back to Great Britain, but the ships were unable to leave without a pass from the governor, which Hutchinson refused to give until the tea was unloaded. So the ships sat in Boston Harbor. As the 20-day deadline approached, Boston's Sons of Liberty mobilized. On the evening of December 16, 1773, a crowd of men dressed as Mohawk Indians, to keep their identities a secret, approached the wharf. They instructed the men guarding the ships to step aside and ask for the keys to the holds. Working quickly and efficiently for 3 hours, they threw all the tea overboard. Only the tea and the chest it was in were destroyed. No other damage was done except for a padlock owned by one of the ship captains, and that was replaced the next day. The harbor was described as being so thick with tea that citizens later went out in small boats to slap the tea with oars to make sure that it sank. The Boston Tea Party was the first major act of defiance by colonists. The reaction from London was swift and severe. Parliament passed the Coercive Acts, which aimed to punish Boston. The port of Boston was closed until the value of the tea and the tax due on it was paid in full. For a city that relied on shipping and trade, it was a harsh blow. The Massachusetts Colonial Assembly was disbanded, ending the colony's ability to have a role in its government, and 4,000 British regulars were sent to Boston to police the colony. Boston citizens expected to provide room and board for the soldiers. By December 21st, Sons of Liberty member Paul Revere set out from Boston for New York City with word of the Boston Tea Party. News of Great Britain's reaction followed shortly. The Boston Tea Party helped unify the colonies behind a common goal. Not only did the other colonies rally and send supplies to Boston's citizens, but they came together in their desire to resist British oppression. When Virginia's House of Burgesses voted to support Boston, Virginia's royal government ordered that the Colonial Assembly be disbanded. In response, Virginia's leaders called for a meeting of the delegates from all the colonies to discuss an organized plan of action. The First Continental Congress met in Philadelphia later that fall. That's the only part that I want you to read, and then you can do your connections. Remember, you can use the I wonder how, what, where, when, and how. And remember, a lot of this we talked about the Parliament, Paul Revere, the Boston Tea Party, dressing like the Native Americans. I know there's a lot of dates. Don't worry about the dates. I just want you to understand the Sons of Liberty and how they felt about the tea tax. Make at least two. If you want to make more, that is okay. That is fine. And you can take a picture of them and you can send them to me at any time. I miss you guys and I will talk with you soon. Please dojo, email, or text me if you all have any questions. Good night.